In today's Modern Warfare 2 video, I'm giving you guys the top 5 best SMG class setups here to use. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and of course, shout out to Nudie Gang here on screen, and let's hop into this. First gun we're taking a look at today is going to be the MINIBAK, so we're going to hop into this here. First attachment is going to be the muzzle category. We're going to throw on the BRUEN Pendulum. This is going to help us out that vertical and horizontal recoil control. It is a very nice attachment to run on this gun. It's going to help stabilize it out because we're giving you guys a very high mobility build. The tune on this thing here is going to be all the way maxed out there for that ADS speed and also all the way maxed out for gun kit control. I should add, you guys should not max out all of your attachments, but there are certain ones you can max out and it is entirely okay. After that, in the laser section, we're going to go throw on the FSS OLE-V laser. This is going to give you a massive increase to your ADS speed, your aiming stability, and of course your sprint to fire speed, which is all really great things here to have on this gun. We love that aiming stability, ADS speed, and sprint to fire is always great just because this is an SMG and you're trying to get in close quarters. After that, we're going to go down to the magazine section. We're going to go throw on the MINIBAK grip mag for aiming, idle stability, and recoil stabilization. You lose a tab to the ADS speed, but do not worry, we're going to fully boost that up way through the roof, so you guys will be fully taken care of. After that, we're going to go to the rear grip section here. We're going to throw on the TRUE-TAC grip for that sprint to fire speed and of course ADS speed. Like I said, this is going to be a very high mobility build, one of my favorites to use on shipment. Actually, this is my favorite to use on shipment, so I definitely recommend for you guys playing shipment to use this specific build. And then the tune on this thing here is a negative 0.61 and then of course a negative 0.29 there on the bottom. Like I said, you shouldn't max out all of your attachments, but you can definitely do that sometimes. And for our final attachment, we're going to use the VLK stockless stock. This is going to give you that pretty huge increase to your ADS speed, sprint to fire, movement, and hip recoil control. These are massively great pros to be able to have on an SMG. Like I said, you lose some of that aiming, recoil control, stability, stuff like that, but that's why we have all those other attachments to help stabilize this gun out. Now let's actually hop in here to the firing range. I'll showcase you guys why it is as good as it is. So I mean, look at that, very minimal recoil. You got great sprint to fire, everything else like that. So this is one of my favorite SMGs to use here in close quarter shipment. Next up, we're going to take a look at the FSS Hurricane. So we're hopping into this. So the muzzle category, first thing, of course, can be the BRUEN Pendulum here once again for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. It doesn't really matter if you have a silencer or not. If you feel like you need more of that damage range, stuff like that, you guys probably go through on like the XTEN RR40. That's going to give you some like great benefits as well. But I found great success also on the BRUEN Pendulum here for this gun. The two on this here is going to be negative 0.36 there on that left side and a plus 0.14 there on the bottom. You have to tune this a little bit differently than you would for the MINIBAK, just because this gun's got like a weird bit of recoil where it kind of likes to bounce around a little bit. It's a bit odd, so I have indeed tuned for that. Next up, the barrel section, we're throwing the FSS CANNONADE 16 damage range, hipfire accuracy, and bullet velocity. This is going to make this SMG a little bit more effective. I always like to think this thing almost as like an AR because it doesn't really have SMG mobility, and when you do give it super SMG mobility, it kind of like chalks the overall like ability to hit your shots, which is not a good thing. But for the tune on this thing here is going to be a plus 0.15 there on that left side and all the way maxed out there on the bottom for the aim down sight speed. Next up in the laser section, we're throwing on the FSS OLE-V laser, ADS speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire. Definitely got to stabilize this gun out here just because, like I said, it's got a weird bit of recoil we want to stabilize, so we're definitely going to throw that on there. And of course, the benefits of sprint to fire and ADS are huge when it comes down to submachine guns. Now for the underbarrel, we're going to go through on the FTAC Ripper 56, aiming, idle stability, hipfire accuracy, and of course recoil stabilization. This is just a great, foregrip to be able to run on a variety of different guns. If you have the option to be able to run it, I'd highly suggest you guys do so. Between this, maybe the VX Pineapple, there's also like the Phase 3 grip, which is also really solid, but the FTAC Ripper 56 is a great option for whenever you have the ability to use it on one of your guns. The tune on this thing here is going to be maxed out for ADS speed and also aim walking speed, just to kind of give this thing a little bit more mobility, since we've kind of slowed it down a little bit to make it more effective at range with some of these other attachments. And finally, for the rear grip, to give us our last attachment, the Phantom Grip. This is going to give us sprint to fire and ADS speed. You guys can use this one here, but if you notice too much flinch resistance, like you notice that you're flinching too much, throw on the XTEN grip and you'll get a little bit less of the sprint to fire and ADS speed, but you're not going to have that flinch resistance con. I personally don't really notice it all that much, so I just like to roll with this to give myself max mobility. And then the tune on this thing here, it's going to be almost maxed out at a negative 0.87. You guys can probably just max out if you really feel like it, and also a negative 0.28 there on the bottom. So that's my full tune. This is my full build. Now let's hop into the firing range here, and I'll show you guys that this is a really fun build to be able to use, a great strafe speed. And now we're going to show you guys the recoil control patterns. I mean, just super simple. We're not going to go for the far range because this is indeed an SMG, even though I kind of feel like it's an AR. And I mean, look at that, just like a little laser beam. As long as you just pull down ever so slightly, it is fantastic. Next up, we're taking a look here at the FENNEC 45. So our first attachment on this is going to be the XTEN RR-40. This gun's got a decent bit of recoil, so we're trying to incorporate some recoil control into our silencer and also get some more range out of it, considering I think this thing needs a tad bit more. So that's why we got this on here instead of like a compensator of some sort. So sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness, a great attachment for this. And then the tune on this is gonna be a negative 0.36 there on that left side, a negative 0.48 here on the bottom. Next up in the underbarrel section is gonna be the phase 3 grip. Like I said, this is one of those really great ones to be able to run in my previous selections there. So we're gonna run this here for aiming idle stability, hip fire accuracy, and recoil stabilization. All great things to have on an SMG. It's just gonna make you more effective there at closer to medium-ish range. And then the tuning on this is gonna be maxed out for recoil stabilization, because the Lord knows you need that. This thing's gonna bounce around quite a bit if you don't do that. And then also a plus 0.23 there on the bottom. Definitely run this tuning. Next up, we got to increase our magazine ammo capacity from that base 30 rounds up to the 45 with the FENNEC Mag 45. The FENNEC just goes through ammo so fast because of the incredibly high fire rate. Pretty much one of the fastest fire rates in the game, if not the fastest. So I definitely say that, you should probably consider running a 45 round mag. If not, maybe you could run something else on the gun, but otherwise I always go for an extended mag. Next up in the rear grip section here is going to be the FENNEC rubber grip, sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. Kind of reminds me as almost like a little bit of a stippled grip tape, but the stippled grip tape in this game, at least for this gun, is for recoil control, not for ADS speed and sprint to fire. Those guys that played Model for 2019, you'll know what I'm talking about, or Warzone 1. But anyways, now let's get into the tuning here for this thing. A negative 0.77 there on that left side, a negative 0.13 here on the bottom. Now for our final attachment, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go throw in the AGILE Assault 7 stock. This is gonna be just great. Sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed, crouch movement speed, aim walking speed, and sprint speed. Not sprint to fire, but sprint speed. So this is a really high mobility attachment. The stock cap is definitely a good option, but this is where you really run into issues with the recoil control, because this thing loses all stability. It just kind of goes straight out the window, and we do not want that. This gives you so many more benefits, or gives you a lot of benefits without nearly as many cons. And then the tuning for this thing here is going to be a negative 0.271 and also a negative 0.93 there, or a plus 0.93 there on the bottom. So this is my full build here for this gun. Now top of the firing range, and this one, you have great strafe speed and everything like that. You're gonna have to pull down on the stick a little bit, but overall, pretty easy to be able to use at those closer-ish ranges. Obviously at medium range, you're gonna find maybe it's not as easy to be able to use. If you don't want to run like a mag, maybe you go run like a barrel, and you'll be entirely okay in that regard. But now let's move on to our next SMG. Next SMG is gonna be the VASNEV 9K, so let's hop into it. First attachment, XTEN RR-40. Sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness. By the way, this is one of my favorite no recoil builds for this gun. For those of you guys that have seen that video, you'll know about this build, but this is a really fantastic one to be able to run. The tune on this thing here is going to be maxed out for ADS speed and a negative 0.65 there on the bottom, giving a little bit more aiming idle stability. Next up in the laser section is going to be the FSS OLE-V laser, ADS speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed. Like I said, this is just a great attachment to run on a variety of different guns. Who doesn't love all three of those pros? The only con is that it's literally, the laser is visible in ADS, which doesn't matter all that much. Maybe if you're camping in a corner ADS, then it's not good for you, in which case, get out the corner. Next up in the magazine section is going to be the 45 round mag. It's the only option we have in here, increasing it from the base 30 up to 45. It's pretty huge. This gun doesn't have a super fast fire rate, so you guys can get away with not having a 45 round mag, but I'd kind of just say to go for the 45, considering we're not running a barrel or something else like that. So this is just a great option. Next up, the rear grip, we're going to throw on the TRUE-TAC grip, sprint to fire, and ADS speed. This is just a great way to speed this gun up without giving you too many cons. You lose a tad bit of recoil control, but do not worry. This thing is really not going to move around hardly at all. The tune on this thing is going to be a negative 0.39 there on the left and negative 0.13 there on the bottom. So a little bit more ADS, a little bit more sprint to fire without messing up the entire rest of the attachment. And for our final attachment, we're going to throw on the MARKEEV R7 stock, crouch movement speed, sprint speed, and of course aim down sight speed. Great stuff to be able to have on this thing. The OTREZAT is another great option, and then same with the VLK stockless, though I would have to warn you guys, much like the FENNEC 45, the stockless, or actually pretty much any no stock style attachment for an SMG is really going to mess with your recoil control capabilities. So that's why I normally speaking don't go for that, because it's just a little bit too much. Even for someone like myself that's really good with recoil control, I just don't believe it's worth it. So I just go for the MARKEEV or maybe the OTREZAT, and pretty much call it a day between these two. And then the tune on this thing here is gonna be negative 1.42, and then maxed out there on the bottom. So this is my full build here on this gun. Now, let me show you guys here. It's very, very low recoil. Pretty much an absolute laser beam. You guys just got to pull down on the stick a little bit, much like with any other gun, and you guys are good to go. And for our final gun here, we're taking a look at the LOCKMAN SUB, of tried and true favorite here in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. First attachment, XTEN RR40. You guys know the drill with this thing here. Great suppressor. We've ran this on a couple of our different guns here already. The tune on this thing here is going to be a negative 0.41 there on that left side and negative 0.32 on the bottom, just to give you a little bit more ADS speed, aiming, idle stability, considering we're getting, you know, quite a bit of pros here in terms of your sound suppression and all that stuff, damage range, recoil smoothness. Just got to speed this gun up a little bit. Next up in the barrel section, to kind of further, you know, make this gun more lethal, the FTAC-M-SUB 12 barrel. Bullet velocity increase, damage range, recoil control, and hipfire accuracy. Great things to have on any SMG, to be honest with you guys, and specifically this gun. I do believe you kind of almost need to run a barrel. I just think it's so much more ineffective when you do not run a barrel at all. I've tried it both ways, much more effective with a barrel. The tune on this thing here is going to be a plus 0.19 there on the left and a negative 0.22 on the bottom. Like I said, I've gone through and like fine-tuned all these things, so that way I'm not just maxing them all out. Considering maxing stuff out can really be detrimental. Next up in the underbarrel section, we're on the phase 3 grip, aiming, idle stability, hipfire accuracy, and recoil stabilization. This in combination with that barrel and the suppressor or the silencer, whatever you want to call it, is gonna make this thing pretty much have no recoil. It's really fun to be able to use, and it's really not going to kick hardly at all. It's very easy going to be able to control, much like the VASN M9K build I just gave you guys. But the tune on this thing here, maxed out for ADS speed and a plus 0.15 there on the bottom, giving it a little bit more aiming, idle stability. We don't care as much about the aim walking speed for this specific attachment. We just want to stabilize this gun out as much as possible. Now for the laser, we're going to go throw on the VLK Laser 7MW. This is going to give you the ADS speed benefit, aiming stability, and sprint fire speed. This is pretty much like the other attachment. I just can't remember it for the life of me, but pretty much I think it's the FSS OLE-V laser. This is like the other version of it, but for at least some of these different submachine guns. So that's kind of why we're running this here. Same pros, same cons, same thing, just more or less for a different attachment name. Now for the magazine, we're going to go bolster this up from the base 30 to 40 rounds. I don't believe you need the 50 round mag. That is just not really beneficial. It slows you down too much, and I believe 40 rounds is perfectly fine for Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Considering the TTK is really fast, 40 just works out perfectly fine, and I don't believe it slows the gun down too much, which is something I'm a big fan of. I like having crazy good mobility. This gun's got a pretty decent amount of it while being no recoil. So this is my full build here for this gun. Now let's hop in the firing range. I'll show you guys here, finish off the video, how this has got low recoil. So I mean, look at that, absolutely beautiful. Super low recoil, great TTK. You really just can't get much better than that. I'll do it here once again. The strafe speed is nothing crazy, probably the lower out of the SMGs I've showed you guys, but overall, super easy to be able to use, very easy to be able to control. Gotta love that. That's gonna be that. If you guys enjoyed today's video, I mean, I'd appreciate if you guys give it a like, subscribe, those notifications turned on, and I'll see you all later. Just remember, don't triple cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.